What happens when the beach, Australia's favorite playground, becomes a war zone? As summer heats up, a terrifying invasion begins all along the coast.
I can remember seeing her eyes looking at me as she got taken, as if to say, help.
Great white! It's a great white!
A man presumed dead.
Throughout the season, it's attack.
Never felt anything that was that aggressive.
After attack.
It started shaking and it took me underwater.
After attack.
It's like Sharkmania.
It's the summer that will break all previous records. As many as 3 attacks in one day.
What the hell's going on today?
It's only a matter of time before an attack like this happens again.
Scientists scramble to stop a national crisis.
This was a family being attacked.
Why does it have to go for my son?
It's the summer of the shark. The shark season begins on remote Seal Rocks Beach during a family holiday.
It was a nice day. We just went down to the water.
Ronnie and his girlfriend keep an eye on his 9-year-old son, Baden, and on her twin girls.
And Baden went out and he was surfing a shore duck, which is right on the beach.
It's a hot day, but the water's cold. And unknown to them, there's a shark prowling the shallows. Baden feels a tug on his leg. He thinks it's the wave he's riding. He sees a chunk of his flipper is gone. Baden tosses it to his dad and runs back into the water.
Initially, I just thought it just tore apart and broke.
But then, Ronnie sees the teeth marks and scratches.
It was pretty clear that it had to be a shark.
And it might be ready to take another bite.
He took me back and we looked at it really carefully and I saw the scratch marks, and that's when I knew it was a shark, and then sort of got a bit freaked out.
The shark's jaws came within a quarter inch of Baden's foot.
Fortunately, with a lot of these shark attacks, the sharks do leave their business card.
Vic Petamores is a leading expert in preventing shark attacks. He's been studying shark behavior for the past 25 years.
Sharks are probably amongst the misunderstood animals in the world.
In December of 2008, the beginning of the Australian summer, he's hired by the government to protect beachgoers and sharks from each other.
Obviously, it's very traumatic when somebody gets killed by a shark, but far more sharks are being killed by humans than the other way around.
In Baden's case, there's no injury, but Vic is interested in what shark species made the bite.
There's quite a big space. The only jaws that have got a gap between the teeth like that would be great whites.
The incident draws Vic's attention to white shark movements near shore.
They might be swimming along our coast, but are they coming into the shallows often enough to encounter humans?
And if so, what's bringing the sharks in so close? The coming weeks will leave a bloody trail of clues. 3 days after Baden's flipper is bitten, 4 fishing buddies set off with kayaks and a plan to catch kingfish. They paddle 1 mile off Longreef, just north of Sydney.
We talked about sharks. That morning I made a joke about, this is quite sharky out here.
Sharky means overcast skies and abundant sea life.
But who cares, there's fish out there. Let's go catch them.
The kingfish are hungry and biting non-stop. Glenn Morgan is on a fishing boat nearby with his brand new video camera.
Yeah, my wife bought it for me for Christmas and I thought it'd be a good day to christen it.
Suddenly, in his viewfinder, a chilling sight appears. This is actual video of the shark, taken as it stalked them that day.
The thing was pretty much right up on us and we saw that it was a great white.
Snow, look at that! Look at that! It's a great white! Look at it! Look at that shark! Look, he's having a good look. Have a look at that! That's big, man. Right next to you, man.
Then, the huge shark heads straight for the kayakers.
A professional fisherman yells out from his boat, 30 metres away, "Great white! Great white! 5 metres and he's coming your way." Hey! Great white!
Great white shark!
Great white!
And I looked to my left-hand side, and as I looked down, I saw the head and then the width of it, and I thought, this is a big shark.
Get on film.
The camera is on kayaker Steve Koksar. As it pans away for a moment, the shark rushes Steve, plunging him into the water.
Oh,
The men in the fishing boat rush to rescue him.
It was a life or death situation.
Fearing the shark will attack Steve, they pull him into their boat.
That was a big shark.
there's something that could eat me out here. All I could do was just think, okay, I'll just be quiet. I won't make any sudden moves.
Now it begins to circle the other kayakers. Johnny, who caught some big kingfish that morning, braces for an attack.
My fish's blood have been seeping steadily into the water to attract the shark.
The great white prowls back and forth as the guys hang on to each other's kayaks for support. Finally, it seems to lose interest. Johnny and Justin decide to make a run for shore. Immediately, at the sound of the splashing paddles, the shark comes racing back.
His back fin out of the water, straight at me.
And that's when I thought, this is looking bad now. He's going to get eaten out there.
The shark comes up next to me. I close my eyes, not to survive, but to wait to be bitten in half.
Instead, he feels the great white swim under his kayak.
My kayak's shaking. I look down. I can see even the black and white outline of the sides of the shark.
At that moment, another fisherman speeds to their rescue.
Myself and Justin hopped aboard, ever grateful to be out of a terrible situation.
This is the second reported encounter with a shark in 4 days. No one's hurt, but it's the first time these men have ever felt like they were the ones being hunted. On the very same day, on the other side of the country, Brian Guest and his son Daniel are combing the waters of their local beach.
It's a pretty pleasant beach, the sort of place where you take children swimming.
Hugh Edwards has been filming sharks in these waters since 1975.
He and his son were snorkeling before breakfast in comparatively shallow water, and they were looking for crabs. A very innocuous form of fishing, not one which you would imagine would attract a shark.
What happened next is not fully known, but Brian Guest seems to have become the target of a great white shark.
And hits a bit like being hit by a car on a freeway.
A man out diving with his son south of Perth this morning is missing, presumed dead, after being attacked by another great white.
Brian's son Daniel, under the water, saw nothing. Several onlookers saw splashing. One witness claims he saw Brian in the shark's jaws, but what actually happened is unclear.
Crowds lined the shore as rescue boats searched for any trace of Mr. Guest.
Only a small piece of Brian's wetsuit washes up on shore.
No body found, and it frightened the public like it always does because it's so sudden, it's violent, and it's mysterious.
There had been 3 encounters with great white sharks in Australia in less than a week, one of them fatal. But summer is peak season for sharks moving along the coast of Australia, and so far, the incidents seem like a string of unrelated events.
But little did people know that there was going to be a link, that there was going to be a shark season that was going to shock everyone.
December 2008. Just as the Australian summer begins, there are 3 shark encounters in 4 days, one of them fatal. Within hours, the Sea Patrol locates a suspect in the death of Brian Guest, a 16-foot-long great white. As they track it, many in the community want it dead.
I think it's a life for life. A rogue shark comes in and kills somebody, kill it. They do it with crocodiles, so why not sharks?
That shark should be shot, taken out of the water immediately.
Scientists fight back.
I don't believe they are targeting humans in any way. There may be other sensory cues in the water that may bring them into the area, such as their favourite prey. It certainly isn't humans.
Then, the wife of the deceased man makes an announcement. She tells the press that her husband Brian had been a lover of the sea and had great respect for sharks. He would not have wanted any harm to come to the shark that killed him. The debate ends, and the shark is let go. News of the man-eating great white shakes nerves across Australia. Over on the Gold Coast, Jono Beard's mother worries that her son will be next. But Jono, who's been surfing all his life, shrugs off her fears and heads to Dreamtime Beach with 2 pals, Justin and Chad.
Beautiful spot, a little bit remote, holds a good wave, but it's also got a lot of wildlife.
Especially today.
At one point, I even got off my surfboard, went underwater and was looking around and saying, boys, check this out, get off your board, get underwater, this is beautiful.
The moon is full and the tide is huge.
I think the animals of the planet are a little bit more active at that time of the month.
Jono's waiting for a wave when suddenly
I heard Jono just let out a noise. It was fright and fear mixed into one.
I saw him waving his hand in the water, like as if to balance, like a bull rider would balance on a bull.
The shark rips through Jono's left leg.
I started screaming at Jono to keep paddling. And he said, I can't, mate, I can't, I'm done.
As the surf brings Jono's body to shore, the friends see a ghastly wound.
That's when I realised the extent of the severity. I was just, oh, whoa.
It was just an open wound from above the knee to above the hip, and it was just absolutely carnage.
In critical condition, Jono is airlifted to a nearby hospital. By a fraction of an inch, the shark teeth missed Jono's femoral artery.
I came out on top, I beat the beast.
His first visitor is Vic Pettimores.
In the case of Jono, it was fairly easy to determine that it was a white shark. By measuring the gap between the tooth imprints, you can work out the size of the animal involved. This is pretty much the size that bit Jono, about 2.6 meters in length.
Vic can tell Jono's attacker was a 10-foot-long shark. That's the size of an adolescent great white. Michael Brown of Surfwatch Australia has important information for Vic.
Well, as we're flying up and down the coast, we saw a massive amount of bait fish that were coming in close to the shore, and they first appear as a large black mass in the water, usually just out behind the breakers.
Those schools of fish are a favorite prey of younger great white sharks before they graduate to eating seals and other large mammals. Vic warns the public, if you see a large school of fish, get out of the water. But just hours after Jono Beard is mauled, another brutal attack far south in Tasmania. Sib Mundy had taken his 13-year-old cousin Hannah out for a surf in Bennelong Bay.
We were just talking 1 minute, everything was so perfect and so pleasant, and I've never felt so safe. All of a sudden, there was a massive black shadow. It was just the most horrible thing you can imagine.
It's an 18-foot great white shark, and it's heading straight for Hannah.
She squealed and sat right up on her board and tried to lift her feet up onto the board, and just as she did, I can remember seeing her eyes looking at me as she got taken, as if to say help. I just screamed her name out, and then she just disappeared into the water. I didn't know if she'd been eaten whole. The size of the shark was just incredible. That was the worst feeling I've ever had in my life.
Suddenly, the shark lunges out of the water with Hannah in its jaws.
Hannah was hanging out the front of its mouth. She was just getting slapped from side to side on the top of the water. I had to try and do something.
Sib swims straight for Hannah and punches the shark as hard as he can. His punches have no effect at all.
I can remember a crunching sound, and then all of a sudden, Hannah disappeared again.
The shark has clamped down on Hannah's board and is towing her under the water by her leg rope. Then the board breaks, cutting Hannah loose.
She was able to launch herself onto my back, and that's when we started to paddle in.
Back at Hannah's house, her father gets the phone call that every parent in the area fears.
He said, get to the hospital as soon as you can. There's been a shark attack. The time frame was critical. She urgently needed blood transfusion. That was probably the worst, not knowing whether she would make it in time.
Miraculously, Hannah will make a full recovery.
She was really pleased to see us, and she didn't have a care in the world. It was amazing. It made both of us very happy.
For Hannah, the encounter with the shark is now a blurry memory.
I sort of remember thinking, like, I don't really like this dream, and trying to close my eyes and open them again to see if I'd wake up.
But Sib remembers every moment. Surprisingly, he's grateful to the shark.
He had the power to cut Hannah into little pieces and me, and he didn't. He grabbed hold of her and shook her. He could have done a lot worse.
But word spreads quickly that two surfers were mauled within hours of each other.
There were extra patrols on the beaches today following two attacks. And swimmers are being warned they enter the water at their own risk.
5 great white shark encounters. The pressure for answers increases as the summer toll rises. The very next morning, another attack.
One after another, it started to unnerve people, and they started to ask what was going on.
January 12, 2009. There were 2 shark attacks the day before, but Australians aren't easily shaken out of their beach-going routines. They're a hardy bunch.
There's a certain acceptance of sharks. You're brought up knowing that there's shark alarms, knowing that there's sharks out there, and everyone's got a tale about sharks. Everyone's got an anecdote.
But that afternoon, 24-year-old Steve Fogarty is mauled by a shark in Lake Illawarra. It's the 3rd attack in 27 hours.
With those
3 attacks coming so quickly after the others in Perth and in New South Wales, then everyone started to become worried.
The next 2 weeks would leave everyone wondering what is bringing so many sharks near shore. January 18th, Tower Hill, Victoria. A father and son, John and Scott Fulton, are fishing. Scott stops to wash his hands when he suddenly finds himself eye to eye with a great white that looks to be 20 feet long. The massive shark begins bumping the boat and shaking the motor. January 24th, Surf Beach, New South Wales. Jeremy McDonough is swimming in shallow water along with a dozen other swimmers when a shark bites his hand. February 6th, Sandon Beach, New South Wales. Jode Skinner is thinking about shark attacks when a great white rams his surfboard. Investigator Vic Pettimores is floored.
You know, this sort of thing just shouldn't be happening here. What was going on?
It's up to him to figure out what's driving the sudden dramatic spike in shark attacks. The answer could save lives. All over Australia, fear and stress are building. As an annual surf trip approaches, Derwin Kegg is having shark dreams.
He'd been having anxious thoughts leading up to the trip, thinking about sharks.
But when they get to the deserted beach, Derwin casts his fears aside.
We're all getting waves and just laughing, going, how amazing is our life? It's that good.
Absolutely perfect weather. Surf was really good. Water was freezing cold, which was weird for that time of year.
Suddenly, the shark from Derwin's dreams is right beneath him.
I turned around as it hit him. It was like an explosion underneath him, just taking him into the air or water.
Derwin lands in the water right beside the shark.
Just grey, sheet metal grey. Big, probably about 12 foot.
He was caught in all of this turbulence trying to get back on his board.
And I saw him with his board up, like this, just punching the shark.
The shark circles around and comes at Derwin again. It looks him in the eye and then swims off. Derwin is sure his dreams prepared him for the ordeal and saved his life.
If I didn't spot him, he would have eaten me in half. I think the reason he may have let me go, he'd lost that initial surprise, that ambush that they're so good at doing.
Mick phones the local surf rescue office to report the incident and learns that there have been 2 other nearby shark encounters that morning. One shark chased some boaters, another a surfer from Brazil. The operator is stunned to hear about Derwin.
And she said, what the hell's going on today? It's like shark mania.
You know, is it the cold water? Is it global warming? Is it, you know, what's set them off to start attacking all of a sudden?
Based on all the evidence Vic's gathered so far, lights, surfboards, and eyewitness accounts, he believes the attackers are most often juvenile great whites. In the last 2 years, scientists have seen juvenile sharks gathering near Port Stephens, Australia, very close to where Derwin saw the great white. These are all teenage sharks, 5 to 10 years old, and up to 11 feet long. It's a mysterious juvenile shark hotspot.
There doesn't seem to be anything there to actually get them to aggregate. It's just sandy bottom. They don't seem to be feeding. What are they doing there? No one knows at this stage.
And this summer, those younger great whites are coming closer to shore, putting them on a collision course with humans. Just 4 days later, a shark attacks where no one ever expected it.
The shark attack wasn't on a remote beach. This was in the heartland of Australia.
By February 2009, halfway through the Australian summer, the national record for shark attacks has been shattered. But residents of Sydney aren't worried. There hasn't been an attack in Sydney Harbour for almost half a century. But that was before the summer of the shark.
Sydney Harbour is everyone's swimming pool. Anyone is quite free to come down to Sydney Harbour and throw themselves in it just about anywhere. And so it's generally considered to be out of bounds. You know, sharks don't come in here, or they shouldn't.
The harbour may seem like a safe place to most Australians, but not to Paul de Gelder. As a Navy diver, he's used to all forms of danger. Paul has conquered all his fears, except one.
I always think of sharks so much to the point that the guys when I was on course used to bring in big pictures of great whites jumping out of the water and stuff to scare me. But you just put that to the back of your mind and you get on with the job.
It's just after sunrise, and he's swimming in a part of the harbor known as Woolloomooloo. He's testing a new sonar system that can detect terrorist activities in the harbor. Even now, sharks are on his mind.
I was contemplating the pros and cons of having my hands down by my side or hands across my chest as to if I got attacked by a shark, where I'd be better off having them. And then I left it by my side. I was just on the point of turning back and continuing my swim when I felt this great big whack in the leg.
Suddenly, a set of jaws clamped down on him with unbelievable force.
I looked down and there was a big shark's face staring at me. The first thing that I was thinking of was just, got to get out of here. It was panic, fight or flight. The adrenaline kicked in and I was just lucky enough to have the clarity to know, go for the eyeball. The only problem was the finger I was trying to jab it in the eyeball with was stuck in its mouth, so I couldn't actually move my arm.
Paul's right hand and leg are pinned inside the shark's mouth. He can't reach the shark's eye with his other hand.
I couldn't really move. It had me in a really good hold.
Then the shark takes him underwater.
I came back up and gasped for a breath, just not knowing when I was going to go under again or how long for. I saw my fin kick up in the air and I saw the shark's tail fin splashing around in the water, and then we went back under again. When I came up and it wasn't attached to me, the first thing I wanted to do was just get out of the water as fast as possible. I didn't know how many other sharks were there or if the shark was going to come back for another go.
The shark has bitten clear through Paul, taking not only his right hand, but much of his right leg. His fellow divers speed to the rescue, and as they haul him in, Paul passes out.
All of a sudden, the shark attack wasn't on a remote beach in Tasmania. It wasn't on the other side of the country in Western Australia. This was in the heartland of Australia. This was the iconic Sydney Harbour, and it just resonated with people.
The recent influx of sharks and yesterday's attack has the minister worried.
With the increased numbers of sharks at this period of time, I think it's a good precaution not to be swimming in Sydney Harbour.
A barrage of questions lands on the desk of Dr. Pettimores.
Were there a lot of sharks in there? What are their movements? Are there hot spots which are potentially more dangerous to be swimming in?
The Navy brings him Paul's wetsuit.
The wetsuit had very distinct imprints in it. It became clear that it was a bull shark that had actually done the damage.
Immediately, a new shark study kicks into high gear.
Coming up to the last one.
Marine biologist Amy Smoothie is in charge of the mission.
How many, where they're going, and why are they going in certain places, and when? We're definitely on.
Definitely on.
Here it is.
You can see right down here, and it's a good size.
In one of the busiest parts of Sydney Harbour, the scientists catch and tag a 10-foot male bull shark.
It's a similar sized shark that I'm dealing with that did attack Paul de Gelder. So we're just making an incision in the abdominal cavity to put the tag in.
The harbour is crawling with so many bull sharks, the scientists are amazed that there aren't even more attacks.
Every single beach within the harbour has got dozens of people at any one time throughout the day.
And bizarrely, almost no one ever gets bitten.
Amy's caught more than 24 bull sharks in the harbour since Paul de Gelder's attack.
We'll be able to track the shark not only within the harbour, but all the way up and down the coast if it comes within 400 metres of one of our listening stations.
Using hundreds of listening stations to record the movements of the tagged sharks, Amy is identifying hotspots of activity.
We're generally finding them to be more abundant in the entrance of the harbour. This is a potentially more dangerous area than another area.
The acoustic pings also show that the bull sharks keep to a tight schedule.
It's like clockwork, if you like. They're coming in at December, January, and then leaving by mid to late April.
Navy seaman Paul de Gelder survives, but loses his hand and his lower leg. Amy's research suggests that his attack happened in a bad place at a bad time, near a hotspot during summer at dawn.
It's very low light levels at that time, so the shark potentially misidentified Paul.
Sydney, the largest city in Australia, is now on high alert.
The fact that he was a Navy diver, I think, worried people deeply because they thought, if he can be taken, and he's a professional, where does that leave me with my legs dangling off a surfboard?
And just one day after Paul de Gelder is mauled in the harbour, there is another attack, and this time on the most crowded beach in Sydney.
A man taken in front of everyone.
The day after a Navy diver is attacked, Glenn Orges decides to go surfing at one of the most popular beaches in Sydney, Bondi. The beach faces the ocean, but is protected by shark nets. There hasn't been an attack here in 80 years.
It was pretty late when I got down there, about 7. There were still 30 guys in the water.
The sun is beginning to set, and the water feels colder to Glenn than usual.
I caught a wave halfway to shore and it just sort of petered out into mush.
Paddling out once more, Glenn spies a good wave.
So I changed direction quickly to go to try and catch the wave, and that's when I got grabbed. I tried to yank my arm away and it just felt really locked on and wouldn't come off. That's when it pulled me under and just shook me. I just thought that I'd never felt anything that was that aggressive before.
Unaware of what's happening, James McIntosh is paddling out.
And then I noticed maybe 8 guys on the face of one wave coming down together. This is not standard stuff in surfing.
It can only mean one thing: a shark in the water.
And one of the guys that was on this wave gave me that look like, you have to get in. It was like, get in.
James heeds the warning and heads to shore. By now, the shark has released what's left of Glenn's arm.
It wasn't really till I pulled it out of the water onto the deck that it all became real that, you know, I've been attacked by a shark.
His hand is hanging on by a small piece of skin, and the rest of his arm has been ravaged to the elbow.
I freaked out totally once I was bitten and I saw the arm and I just went nuts for a couple of seconds. I'm thinking it's coming back. I'm thrashing. Just get away from all the blood. I wasn't getting anywhere.
Paddling with his one good arm, Glenn fights for his life.
I'm thinking about my wife. You know, she's pregnant and I think that she's going to have to, you know, have the baby all by herself.
Then, a wave brings him to shore, where a crowd is growing. James McIntosh has never met Glenn, but rushes to help.
This is quite surreal almost. I'm not really sure if I can actually go through with this. So I pulled the leg rope off him and then bound it around his arm just as quickly as I could. And he said, tell my wife Lisa that I love her. She's 6 months pregnant. Wow. And I was like, look mate, you're going to be fine, this is fine. And I thought it's quite likely that Glenn might survive that.
The attack of the surfer at Bondi was the turning point. You had cameras down at Bondi Beach. When he was looked after, cared for, the ambulance arrived, the whole thing, or much of it, was caught on camera.
Rumors spread about a rogue shark near Sydney, and people are in a panic.
It puts a lot of pressure on the government and scientists like me to be able to put the truth out there, to put the hysteria at rest.
Vic finds that once again, the attacker was a juvenile great white, about 10 feet long. By now, 12 shark encounters have been recorded for the first 2 months of summer, a 600% increase over the previous summer. 10 are by great whites. And, what might be a clue, several victims mentioned very cold water before their attacks. More aerial patrols are added.
I'm the shark spotter. I take photos of the sharks.
But besides sharks, they spot what might be another clue. Enormous numbers of bait balls, schools of thousands of fish.
On a clear sunny day such as today, when they're close to the shore, they look amazing. They stand out really clear.
Track bait fish, and you can track the young sharks that are chasing them. So what are the bait fish chasing, and why are they traveling further south than normal? Every summer, millions of little tropical fish catch a free ride south on the Eastern Australia Current.
Anything hitchhiking on those that's like a little baby fish, for instance, can get a nice ride for thousands of kilometres south.
The bait fish chase the little tropical fish, and the sharks chase the bigger bait fish. Recently, as ocean temperatures have warmed, the current has intensified, funneling all the fish further south and into the water around Sydney.
So we've got a nearly 200-year record of temperature, and the last decade we've had 2 of the warmest winters ever.
The current is expected to increase, which may increase the attacks.
This is Sydney's 3rd attack in 3 weeks.
That struck a new chord with people because this was a family being attacked. The summer of 2008 and 9 has been the bloodiest on record in Australia.
Now, experts are warning that it's only a matter of time before an attack like this happens again.
Charles Lindop and his teenage son Andrew have been surfing their neighborhood beach in Avalon since Andrew was in diapers. They've heard about all the shark attacks, but they know there's never been one here in this quiet cove north of Sydney.
You know, if you start working out the law of averages and the likelihood of a shark attack, it's so remote, it's very easy to rationalise it away.
But this morning, the sky is grey and the water is ominously dark.
Well, Andrew turned to me and sort of said that he thought it looked a bit sharky, and I remember thinking, it does look a bit sharky, but we went out anyway.
While Andrew waits for a wave, he suddenly yells out. He's been stung by a blue bottle jellyfish. He hops into the water to shake it off. His quick movements attract the attention of a much bigger menace, a 10-foot-long great white. The shark locks onto Andrew's leg, crushing the bone. It lifts him up off his board.
I'm seeing all the blood and I'm wanting to get him out of the water and make sure that he's okay. I remember him saying, I can't feel my leg, and I'm saying, don't be bloody stupid, your leg's still there. Not knowing whether his leg is still there or not, it just sounded like the right thing to say.
They begin paddling in together until Charles sees a wave coming.
I gave him an almighty push and just told him to get to the shore as fast as he could.
Now, Charles is alone, paddling through the trail of his son's blood.
I'm just thinking, why the hell is it bitten Andrew? You know, why the hell can't it bite me? You know, why does it have to go for my son? So, you know, and then I'm sort of thinking, right, I've got to catch a wave, I've got to get in there, you know, I've got to look after Andrew.
Reaching shore, he's shocked by the severity of Andrew's wounds.
He's got bloody gaping holes all up and down his leg, it's bleeding everywhere. I remember screaming over and over again, has anyone called an ambulance?
15-year-old Andrew Lindop being reassured by his father Charles. The pair was surfing together at North Avalon at 6:30 this morning. Andrew was sitting on his board 50 metres out when a shark grabbed his left leg.
It's the 16th shark encounter of the summer. Andrew's wounds are from yet another juvenile great white shark.
It was sort of like that. My board was in here. So as you can see, it's a circle. So that was the top of the shark's mouth and the side there. And then there was the other side down there.
Vic Pettimore's lab begins to focus on cracking the mystery of the attacking great white teenagers. Their latest research shows that adolescent great whites differ from adults. This difference may hold a key to the summer's attacks.
If this shark wanted to bite something, what it would do is it would lift its head up, then this would pull the jaw back like a slingshot, and then this jaw would shoot forward and snap like a steel trap.
The power of that bite comes from the design of the jaws.
If you take these jaws and you cut through them, you look at the jaws, you'll see that it's shaped sort of like a pipe. The outside is a very stiff cartilage. The inside is a softer core.
This cartilage develops during a great white shark's teen years, allowing it to switch foods from baitfish to large mammals. During this transition time, it can easily mistake a human for its natural prey.
They have to go through a learning process. What is a seal? What is a dolphin? They don't have mum or dad teaching them what they should be feeding on. It's a self-taught process. They need to really just test almost anything they come across. Is this edible, yes or no?
With this final piece of data, Vic Pettimore shapes a theory of why shark attacks spiked that summer. Large numbers of juvenile great whites were gathering in the hotspot at Port Stephens. When rivers flooded in Queensland that year, warm water flowed south, creating a narrow cold water corridor for great whites, which prefer cooler temperatures.
It was squashing the population of sharks up against the coast. And as a result, there was more chance that they were going to be encountering humans.
Of the 18 shark encounters that summer, 15 are believed to have been with great whites. Only one was fatal, and many victims reported unseasonably cold water. The facts support Vic's theory of juvenile great whites taking survivable test bites on humans. Whatever was causing the increase in shark attacks, Australians weren't going to let it keep them from their favorite pastime.
3, 2, 1.
On the same day Andrew Lindop is attacked, 900 swimmers in Sydney decide to take back their waterways.
Somehow the vast public, they take a deep breath and they suck it all in, and then they go back into the water. There's something in the Australian psyche that allows them to do that.
I'm worried about getting run over by a cruise liner.
The next summer, the number of attacks goes back down to normal.
It was a relief. It meant that we weren't dealing with an ongoing issue and that it was probably just an environmental spike.
And time begins to heal nearly all wounds. Hannah Mighal wants to be in the water full-time when she grows up.
I'd really like to be a marine biologist.
Glenn Orges' daughter is born 4 months after the attack, and now he takes her to the beach. He's become a spokesman for the Red Cross. They saved his life with badly needed blood transfusions. Paul de Gelder goes before the United Nations to speak in defense of the world's dwindling shark population.
That was a really humbling experience to be able to come over here on a worldwide scale, go to the UN and work with these wonderful people. You know, that's amazing to try and make a difference worldwide.
Vic Pettimores is looking towards the future.
My view is more holistic and sort of trying to make sure that sharks and humans can live in harmony with each other and managing how we do that.
The Guest family continues to mourn the loss of Brian, but they focus on the great gift he left behind, a profound passion for the sea.
Brian was killed doing what he loved. Again, a bit of comfort hanging on to the fact that Brian will be cruising the oceans for eternity, seeing all the unbelievable sights from a real front row seat.